Chapter 10. Recognition Beneath the Chandeliers. Scroll. Alisa's POV. Time skip. Mikaelson's Ball. The moment Alisa crossed the threshold, the room changed. Not because she was unfamiliar, but because she was known. Whispers ripped outward like a dropped stone. That's her, Elena's sister, the Grimm. Alisa felt it immediately. The way the air tightened, the way bodies subtly shifted, creating space without anyone meaning to. Humans sensed danger they couldn't name. Supernatural creatures sensed something worse. She didn't slow, however. The dress Adaland had chosen fit like intention itself, dark, elegant, unassuming until the light caught it right. Power without spectacle. Across the room, Elena exhaled in quiet relief. Damon's brow lifted. Well, he muttered, smirking faintly, someone just made this party interesting. Caroline's eyes widened. Okay, rude, she looks incredible. Bonnie tilted her head, magic brushing her senses. She feels louder in here. Matt swallowed. Yeah, like the room noticed her. Stefan watched in silence, not wary, not surprised, just alert. Alisa met Elena's eyes and gave a small nod. I'm here. Then Elijah spoke. Tonight's pick is centuries-old waltz. Please, find a partner and join us in the ballroom. Movement resumed, but the attention didn't leave her, and Stefan was the one who approached first. The first dance. Stefan offered his hand without ceremony, already knowing she'd take it. You knew they'd stare, he said quietly as the music carried them into motion. I knew they wouldn't stop, Alisa replied, placing her hand in his. The waltz carried them forward, smooth and practiced. Around them, the ballroom glittered candlelight, silk, power dressed up as civility. Is Damon behaving? Alisa asked lightly. Stefan let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. Define behaving. She smiled faintly. Not killing anyone, yet. Then yes, Stefan said, so far. They turned, passing Elena and Damon mid-dance. Damon caught Alisa's eye and gave a lazy, exaggerated nod, as if to say, see, model citizen. Alisa rolled her eyes. How's Elena? She asked next, quieter now. Determined, Stefan replied. Terrified, pretending she isn't. That tracks. The music dipped, then rose again. And Jeremy? Alisa asked. Stefan's expression softened. Still grieving, still stubborn, but he's standing. Alisa nodded, relief flickering briefly across her face. Good. Bonnie, she asked. Watching everyone, Stefan said, carrying more than she should. Figures, Alisa murmured, then she hesitated, then added. And Caroline. Stefan glanced toward the edge of the ballroom, where Caroline danced with Klaus, tense, bright, trying not to be seen watching Tyler's absence. Complicated, Stefan said, but strong. Alisa exhaled slowly. She always is. For a moment, they danced in silence, the familiar weight of shared history settling between them. Then Alisa spoke again. There's someone important to me, she said. His name is Steve. Stefan's step didn't falter, but his eyes did. I remember him, Stefan said softly. Alisa looked up. From before. Stefan nodded once. Long before. Vampire. Stefan's POV. Time skip, flashback. Stefan had been lingering at the edge of the crowd, half hidden beneath the glow of neon lights and polished chrome, watching humanity dream loudly about the future. He noticed them almost immediately. Two young men moving through the crowd together, one tall, broad-shouldered, laughing easily. The other smaller, thinner, eyes too bright for a body that fragile. I don't see what the problem is, the taller one said, walking alongside the smaller one. You're about to be the last eligible man in New York. You know there's 3.5 million women here. Well, the smaller one replied, looking down to the floor. I'd settle for just one. The taller one grinned, waving toward two girls nearby. Good thing I took care of that. Hey, Bucky, one of the girls called out. Steve looks over to Bucky. What did you tell her about me? Bucky looks over to Steve. Only the good stuff. Stefan watched Steve carefully then, the way he shifted, the way he looked slightly overwhelmed but hopeful. Not trying to impress, just trying to exist. The announcer's voice boomed over the crowd. Welcome to the modern Marvel's Pavilion and the world of tomorrow. A greater world, a better world. Excitement rippled through the people around them. Oh my God, the girl gasped. It's starting. Ladies and gentlemen, a female announcer spoke. Mr. Howard Stark. On stage, a man with slicked back hair and unshakable confidence stepped into the light. The crowd erupted. I love you, Howard, someone shouted. Howard smiled like he knew exactly what the future would cost. Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that in just a few short years, your automobile won't even have to touch the ground at all? Stefan watched Steve's eyes light up, not at the machine, but at the idea. Yes, Stark continued. With Stark gravitic reversion technology, you'll be able to do just that. The flying car lifted and promptly malfunctioned, crashing back down. Holy cow, Bucky muttered. I did say a few years, didn't I? Stark quipped. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Bucky turned back toward Steve. Hey, Steve, what do you say we treat these girls? He stopped and Steve was gone. Stefan felt it then, that pull, that sense of inevitability. Stefan followed the current of people through the fairgrounds, music and laughter clashing against something far more serious simmering beneath it all. He spotted Steve near the enlistment booth, standing alone, shoulders squared, resolve written across his face. A woman grabbed another soldier by his arm, laughing as she pulled him away. Come on, soldier. Moments later, Bucky appeared behind Steve. Come on, Bucky said as he tapped Steve's shoulders. You're kind of missing the point of a double date. We're taking the girl dancing. You go ahead, Steve replied. I'll catch up with you. You're really going to do this again? Well, it's a fair. I'm gonna try my luck. Bucky scoffed. As who's Steve from Ohio? They'll catch you, or worse, they'll actually take you. Stefan watched Steve's jaw tighten. Look, I know you don't think I can do this. This isn't a back alley, Steve. It's war. I know it's a war. The words carried weight. Why are you so keen to fight? Bucky demanded. There are so many important jobs. Steve looks at Bucky. What do you want me to do? Collect scrap metal in my little red wagon? Stefan noticed a man behind them, taking an interest in Steve, but his gaze shifted back to Steve and Bucky. Steve shook his head. I'm not gonna sit in a factory, Bucky. Bucky, come on. There are men laying down their lives. I got no right to do any less than them. That's what you don't understand. This isn't about me. Bucky looks at Steve. Right, 'cause you got nothing to prove. A woman calls out, Hey, Sarge, are we going dancing? Bucky turns around to face the woman. Yes, we are. He turned back to Steve. Don't do anything stupid until I get back. How can I? Steve shot back. You're taking all the stupid with you. Bucky walked over to him and hugged him. You're a punk. Steve replied as he hugged back. Jerk, be careful. Steve thought for a moment before calling out. Don't win the war till I get there. Stefan watched them disappear into the lights and music. He remembered thinking then, that boy will never stop trying. And later, when the serum worked, when Hydra began to hunt, when Steve got Bucky back, and when Steve became a symbol instead of a man, Stefan chose to erase himself from Steve's life, because heroes like that didn't survive if they knew too much. Scroll. Alisa's POV. Time skip out of the memory. Alisa looked at Stefan as he stopped dancing before she sees him snapping out of it. Stefan, she asked softly. Stefan blinked, realizing he'd gone still. Too still. Alisa's brow furrowed. You just disappeared. Stefan exhaled, grounding himself, eyes flickering briefly to the polished floor before lifting back to hers. I was remembering, he said. Remembering what? Alisa asked, confusion in her voice. He was already a hero, he said quietly, long before anyone gave him a shield. Alisa's confusion didn't fade, but it softened into understanding as the weight of his words settled. After a while, Alisa notices Elijah walk over. "May I?" Elijah asked smoothly, already stepping closer. Alisa notices out of the corner of her eyes Elena walking into a room with Esther, but her gaze snapped back to Elijah and Stefan. Stefan released her without protest. "She's yours," he said evenly, not submissive but respectful. Elijah took Alice's hand, his grip formal and deliberate. "You're not merely Elena's twin," Elijah said as they moved. "You're a Grimm." "And you didn't invite me because of my family ties," Alisa replied. "You invited me because of what I hunt." A pause, then a smile. "Correct," Elijah said. They turned beneath the chandeliers. "You exist outside of the rules we've built," he continued. "Grimm's answer to no coven, no sire line, no crown." "And that makes me inconvenient," Alisa said. "It makes you dangerous," Elijah corrected gently, "to monsters who rely on fear." Alice's gaze darts from Elijah to Klaus, who is walking outside with Caroline, then back to Elijah. Alisa asked the question, but knows who it is. "So which one of you feels threatened?" Elijah met her eyes fully now. "Not I," he said, "but my brother is curious." That was not reassuring, and after a while, Klaus comes back in. "Then tell Klaus this," Alisa said calmly, knowing Klaus is listening. "I didn't come to bow." Elijah raised his brow. "I wouldn't insult you by expecting it." As the music slowed, eyes followed them again, but the stares had shifted. Not dismissal, not dominance, just recognition. And from the far side of the room, Klaus Mikaelson watched Elena's Grimm twin with open interest. "Shield." Steve's POV. Mikaelson looks over to Steve. "I mean, if it had not too much trouble." Steve looks at him before looking ahead. No, it's fine." Mikaelson looks around before looking at Steve again. "It's a vintage set. It took me a couple of years to collect them all. Near mint." Steve looks over to him with his arms crossed. Mikaelson continues. Slight foxing around the edges, but... Sitwell speaks up. "We got a hit, a 67% match. Wait, cross match, 79%. Mikaelson walks over to him. "Location." Sitwell replies. "Stuttgart, Germany, 28 Königstrasse. He's not exactly hiding." Nick speaks up to Steve. "Captain, you're up." Steve looks over to Nick and nods, before going to get dressed in his uniform. Chapter 11. Apex recognized Apex. Scroll. Alisa's POV. Alisa felt him before she saw him. The shift in the room. The subtle tightening of attention like a predator stepping fully into the light. Klaus Mikaelson approached with confidence of someone who never needed permission. Elijah looks over to Klaus. "Niklaus, this is Alisa." Klaus turned his full attention to her then. Not appraising, not dismissive, curious. "Elena Gilbert's twin," he said. "The Grimm." Alisa met his gaze without any fear. "Klaus Mikaelson." His lips curved. "Please, Klaus will do." She tilted her head slightly. "Then we'll be informal together." That earned a quiet, genuine laugh. "I wanted to thank you for accepting our invitation," Klaus said. "Not everyone would." "You didn't invite me for my manners," Alisa replied calmly. "You invited me because of what I hunt." Klaus's eyes gleamed. Honesty, refreshing. "And dangerous," she added, "depending on who you are." Klaus said lightly. "I like you already." Elijah watched them carefully, two apex forces circling, neither bowing. "Enjoy the rest of the evening," Klaus said at last. "Mystic Falls has been dull lately." He stepped back, eyes lingering on her for half a second too long. "I suspect you won't be." And then he was gone, and Bonnie walks over to her. Alisa looks over to Bonnie. "Okay," Bonnie said quietly. "So it's not just me, right?" Alisa looks at her. "Depends what you're feeling." Bonnie's brow furrowed. "The Mikaelson don't invite things they can't control." Damon snorted from where he leaned against a pillar. "Correction, they don't invite things they can't use." Bonnie shot him a look, then turned back to Alisa. "You being here, that's not political, that's strategic." Alisa's expression didn't change. "They wanted to see if I'd come." "And Bonnie asked. And now they know I don't scare easily. She glanced briefly toward the staircase, where Esther and Elena had disappeared earlier. A Grimm in a room full of originals, Bonnie murmured. That's not balance, that's a warning. Well, Damon said, pushing off the wall and stepping closer. Look at that. 1,000-year-old murder family throwing a ball just to eyeball Little Red Riding Hood. Alisa raised a brow. Careful, Salvator. I'm not Elena, you can't flirt with me. He smirked. What, I'm on your side, mostly. She folded her arms. You have a strange way of showing support. Damon shrugged. Grimms hunt monsters. Originals invented them. I'm just saying, this is like inviting a shark to dinner and acting surprised when it bites. Bonnie rolled her eyes. Damon. What? He said. Am I wrong? No, she replied. You're just loud about it. He grinned. It's a gift. The night pressed in as Alisa stepped outside after a while. The music dulled behind her. The mansion loomed elegant, ancient, watching. She paused at the bottom of the steps, glancing back once. Elijah stood near the doorway, composed as ever. Klaus watched from deeper inside, interest still burning. Carl and Rebecca busy, talking to each other. Bonnie lingered near the threshold, worry written into her posture. Damon lifted his glass in a lazy salute. Stefan watching out for Elena, as Alisa was distracting Damon. Alisa turned away. She walked into the night, knowing one thing with certainty. The Mikaelsons hadn't invited her to make peace. They had invited her because the game had changed, and so had she. Shield. Steve's POV. Loki had stepped out museum, and everyone was running away. Chaos everywhere, before Loki teleported in front of a crowd which turned the opposite direction. Kneel before me, Loki says before teleporting in front of the crowd again. Loki steps forward as clones of him stops the crowd. I said, kneel. Everyone out of fear starts to kneel. Loki smirks. Is not this simpler? Is this not your natural state? It's the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation. The bright lure of freedom diminishes your life's joy in a mad scramble of power for identity. You were made to be ruled. In the end, you will always kneel. An old man looks over to him as he stood up. Not to men like you. Loki chuckles. There are no men like me. The old man shook his head. There are always men like you. Loki raised his head a bit. Look to your elder, people. Let him be an example. As Loki was about to execute the man with his scepter, as the light glows blue. Right as the energy beam shoots out, Captain America arrives, diving in just in time to block the blast with shield and knocking down Loki. Steve walks over to Loki. You know, the last time I was in Germany and saw a man standing above everyone else, we ended up disagreeing. Loki smirks as he stood up. The soldier, the man out of time. Steve shook his head. I'm not the one who's out of time. The Quinket appears behind Steve, and Natasha spoke through the comms. Loki, drop the weapon and stand down. Loki sends a blast of blue at the Quinjet, but Natasha maneuvers it just in time, giving Steve time to throw his shield at Loki. They both began to duel it off. Loki flings Steve to the ground, and then Steve throws his shield, but Loki swats it away. As Steve is knocked out by Loki, the scepter is pointed to Steve's helmet. Kneel, Loki says as he looks down at Steve. Steve grabbed the scepter and pushes it away. Not today. He kicks Loki in the face, and Loki grabs him and flips him over. Natasha watching. This guy's all over the place. The Quinjet speaker slowly plays AC/DC. Shoot to thrill. Tony speaks through the comms. Agent Romanoff, did you miss me? Natasha does a little smirk as Steve and Loki look up at the sky confused. Tony flies over in his Iron Man suit and blasts Loki right back to the ground. He touches down and he pulls out every piece of weaponry the suit has. Make your move, Reindeer Games. Steve walks over to Tony, and Loki puts his hands up and surrenders as his armor disappears. Tony hides the weapons. Good move. Steve looks over to Tony. Mr. Stark. Tony doesn't move his gaze from Loki. Captain. Chapter 12, When Gods Collide. Shield. Steve's POV. On the flight in the Quinjet at night, Fury speaks through the comms. Is he saying anything? Natasha replies as she's flying the jet. Not a word. Just get him here, we're low on time. Steve looks at Loki but turns his back. I don't like it. Tony doesn't move his gaze. What? Rock of Ages giving up so easily? Steve shook his head. I don't remember it being that easy. This guy packs a wallop. Still, you're pretty spry for an older fellow. Steve turns to look at Loki again. Tony looks at Steve. What's your thing, Pilates? Steve looks at Tony confused. What? Tony shrugs his shoulders. It's like calisthenics. You might have missed a couple of things, doing time as a capsicee. Steve stares at Tony. Fury didn't tell me he was calling you in. Tony looks back at Loki. Yeah, there's a lot of things Fury doesn't tell you. Loki starts to feel something wrong, as thunder could be heard. Natasha looking confused. Where's this coming from? Steve stares at Loki. What's the matter? Are you scared of a little lightning? Loki looks at them. I'm not overly fond of what follows. Tony and Steve look at each other. Someone lands on the Quinjet, and everyone inside starts to armor up. Steve looks over to Tony. What are you doing? Thor lands in the Quinjet, then knocks out both Tony and Steve before grabbing Loki and disappearing. Tony groans as he gets up, and now there's that guy. Natasha looks over to Tony. Another Asgardian. Steve looks at Tony confused. That guy's a friendly. Tony walking over to the opening of the Quinjet. Doesn't matter. If he frees Loki or kills him, the Tesseract's lost. Steve calls out to Tony. Stark, we need a plan of attack. Tony turns head to look over his shoulders. I have a plan. Attack. Tony jumps out of the jet and his boosters starts, and he chases after Thor. Steve sighs before running over to grab a parachute and puts it on himself. Natasha looks at Steve. I'd sit this one out, Cap. Steve shakes his head. I don't see how I can. Natasha tells Steve. These guys come from legends. They're basically gods. Steve looks at Natasha. There's only one god, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that. Steve jumps out of the jet. Scroll. Alisa's POV. The house was quiet when Alisa stepped inside. Too quilt. The door clicked shut behind her, sealing out the night air and whatever remnants of Mikaelson elegance still clung to her clothes. She slipped off her heels near the entryway, the soft thud echoing through the space. Enjoy the party. Sean's voice came from the living room. Alisa looks over to him. He stood near the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled, posture casual in a way that never fooled anyone. One hand rested loosely at his side. The other held a glass he hadn't touched. You're awake. I'm guessing Zoberbius doesn't sleep, she said. I was waiting, Sean replied. Alisa moved farther into the room, the light catching the dress one last time before she reached for the clasp at her shoulder. Then you already know it wasn't a party. Sean's gaze flicked briefly to the fabric, then back to her face, and he sees her walk into her room for privacy, and he waits outside, and after a while she comes back out in PJs. They wanted you seen, he started, and measured. Alisa nods. They stared like I was a loaded weapon. Sean's jaw tightened. That's because you are. Klaus introduced himself, she said casually. Sean looked straight at her, formally. Yes. And Elijah. Watched, listened, said very little. Sean nodded once. That's worse. Alisa leaned against the counter, arms folding. They didn't threaten me. No, Sean agreed. They don't threaten things they're still studying. She tilted her head. You knew they wanted me there. I knew they'd ask, he corrected. I didn't know you'd accept. Alisa stares at him. Then how did the dress appear in my bedroom? Unless your little witch pulled a Catherine move. Sean exhaled through his nose, something close to a smirk tugging at his mouth. It wasn't a trick. Then it was a test. Yes. For me, or for you. That gave him pause, then he set his glass down. For all of us. Alisa pushed off the counter and stepped closer, her voice low. They weren't afraid of me. No, he said. They were interested. She smiled then, but there was no warmth in it. That should worry you. It does. They'll come back, Alisa finally. Not with claws, with smiles. Sean met her gaze, and when they do... Alisa's eyes flashed, ancient and resolute. Then they'll learn what happens when apex predators forget what they're hunting. Shield. Steve's POV. Thor lands on the rocks, and Loki lays there, and he laughs. Thor walks over. Where's the Tesseract? Loki smiles. I missed you too. Thor yells. Do I look to be in a gaming mood? Loki gets up weakly. You should thank me. With the Bifrost gone, how much dark energy did the All-Father have to muster to conjure you here to your precious Earth? Thor grabs Loki by the throat. I thought you were dead. Loki looks at Thor. Did you mourn? Thor looks at Loki. We all did, our father. Loki raised his finger. Your father. He did tell you my true parentage, did he not? Thor lets go of Loki and sees him walk off. We were raised together. We played together. We fought together. Do you remember none of that? Loki turns around as he walked off. I remember a shadow, living in the shade of your greatness. I remember you tossing me into an abyss. I who was and should be king. Thor shrugs his shoulders. So you take the world I love as a recompense for your imagined slights. No, the earth is under my protection, Loki. Loki laughs. And you're doing a marvelous job with that. The humans slaughter each other in droves while you idly fret. I mean to rule them, as why should not? Thor scoffs. You think yourself above them. Loki looks away for a moment, then back at Thor. Well, yes. Thor shakes his head. Then you miss the truth of ruling, brother. A throne would suit you ill. Loki scoffs and walks up the mountain. I've seen worlds you've never known about. I have grown, Odinson, in my exile. I have seen the true power of the Tesseract and when I wield it. Thor looks at him. Who showed you this power? Who controls the would-be king? Loki yells, I am a king. Thor shakes his head again. Not here. You give up the Tesseract. You give up this poisonous dream. You come home. Loki looks at Thor for a moment, then scoffs. I don't have it. Thor grabs his hammer after he summoned it. Loki looks at Thor. You need the cube to bring me home, but I've sent it off I know not where. Thor lifts his hammer to Loki. You listen well, brother. Tony flies past and knocks Thor away from Loki. Loki shakes his head slightly as he's amused. I'm listening. Forest. Thor groans as he stood up, and Tony opens his helmet up. Thor looks at Tony. Do not touch me again. Tony looks at Thor. Then don't take my stuff. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Tony looks around, then back at Thor. Shakespeare in the park. Thor looks at him confused. Doth mother know you weareth her drapes? This is beyond you, metal man. Loki will face Asgardian justice. He gives up the cube, he's all yours. Until then, stay out of the way. Tony puts the helmet back on. Thor looks away before throwing his hammer at Tony. Tony looks confused as he checks the damages. Okay. From the mountainside, Loki watches in amusement. Thor raises his hand and Mjolnir flies back to his hand. Thor swings the hammer, summoning a ray of energy. Tony stands up and from his hand boosters, a blast of energy knocks Thor onto his ass. Tony flies back up and knocks Thor into a tree. Right back at you, bitch. Thor raises his hammer and pulls in lightning and thunder, then points it at Tony, and the outpouring of bolts lighting increases in intensity. Tony falls back as Jarvis speaks up. Power at 400% capacity. Tony looks at Thor. How about that? He fires from his hand repulsor, pushing Thor to his knees, like two gunslingers ready to draw. Both Thor and Tony flies toward each other and meet in the middle and ascend up. The two keeps battling. Tony grasps Thor, elbowing him and smashing him into THR side of a mountain. Thor jumps off and takes Tony with him. Thor and Iron Man crash right back down, smashing down every tree possible. Tony yanks Thor right up. Thor grabs both hands' boosters and begins to crush them. Tony quickly charges as much energy as he can and shoots energy in Thor's face. Thor falls back, losing his stance. He headbutts Thor with his gold titanium alloy helmet. Thor headbutts Iron Man and sends him across the forest. He boosters up and flies back at Thor, grabbing him by the arm and cape and swings him into another tree. Thor looks up ready. Thor runs with all his patience out the window. Tony swings and misses, giving Thor the momentum to grab him, lift him, and smash him down hard. Thor summons back Mjolnir to his hand. Just as he's about to put the hammer down, Tony uses his hand's boosters to skid across the ground and trip Thor over. Standing up, Thor looks for him, but from behind him, Tony crashes into his back. Thor stands facing Tony, ready to pounce. Captain America's shield ricochets off a tree between Thor and Tony, stopping them. They look up and see Captain America, standing on top of a fallen tree with the shield back in hand. Steve yells, "Hey, that's enough." Steve jumps down and walks over to them. "Now, I don't know what you plan on doing here." Thor looks at Steve. "I've come here to put an end to Loki's schemes." Steve doesn't back down. "Then prove it, put that hammer down." Tony looks at Steve. Yeah, no, bad call, he loves his hammer." Thor backhands Tony into a tree. Losing all patience, raises the hammer. He looks at Steve. "You want me to put the hammer down?" Thor leaps up, raising the hammer. Steve raises it above his head. Mjolnir comes crashing into the vibranium shield, causing a shockwave. Tony gets up first, as he groans, and Steve gets up as well as Thor. Steve looks at them. "Are we done here?" Thor looks around for a moment, before they all go back to the Quinjet. Time skip, briefing room. Natasha looks up from the footage as everyone is listening in. Bruce crosses his arms. "He really grows on you, doesn't he?" Steve looks over to Bruce then at the table where the footage was. "Loki's gonna drag this out. So, Thor, what's his play?" Thor doesn't look at anyone. "He has an army called the Chitauri. They're not of Asgard, nor any world known. He means to lead them against your people." Thor turns to look at them. "They will win him the Earth, in return, I suspect, for the Tesseract." Steve looks at Thor. "An army from outer space." Bruce removes his glasses. "So he's building another portal. That's what he needs Eric Selvig for." Thor looks at Bruce, confused. "Selvig?" Bruce looks at Thor. "He's an astrophysicist." Thor looks at him. "He's a friend." Natasha speaks up. "Loki has him under some kind of spell, along with one of ours." Steve looks at Natasha and Thor. "I want to know why Loki let us take him. He's not leading an army from in here." Bruce shook his head. "I don't think we should be focusing on Loki. That guy's brain is a bag full of cats. You could smell the crazy on him." Thor walks closer. "Have care how you speak. Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard and he is my brother." Natasha rolls her eyes before looking at Thor. "He killed 80 people in 2 days." Thor looks at her for a moment. "He's adopted." Bruce looks at them. "I think it's about the mechanics. Iridium. What do they need iridium for?" Tony walks in. "It's a stabilizing agent." Tony looks at Mikaelson. "I'm just saying, pick a weekend. I'll fly you to Portland, keep love alive." Steve looks over to Tony as he overhears him, but he doesn't say anything. Tony looks at everyone. "It means the portal won't collapse on itself like it did at S.H.I.E.L.D. No hard feelings, Point Break. You've got a mean swing. Also, it means the portal can open as wide and stay open as long as Loki wants." Tony walks over the tablets. Raise the mizzenmast, jib the topsails." Tony points over to a guy. "That man is playing Galaga." Everyone turns to face the guy. "He thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. How does Fury even see these?" Maria with her arms crossed. He turns. Tony turns around. "Sounds exhausting." The rest of the raw materials, Agent Barton can get his hands on pretty easily. The only major component he still needs is a power source of high energy density, something to kickstart the cube. Maria looks at Tony. "When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?" Tony stares at Maria. Last night. The packet, Selvig's notes, the extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading? Steve looks at Tony. Does Loki need any particular kind of power source? Bruce speaks up and everyone turns to him. He would have to heat up the cube to 120 million Kelvin just to break through the Coulomb barrier. Tony raises his hands. Unless Selvig has figured out how to stabilize the quantum tunneling effect. Bruce nods. Well, if he could do that, he could achieve heavy ion fusion at any reactor on the planet. Tony points to Bruce. Finally, someone who speaks English. Steve looks confused. Is that what just happened? Tony shakes Bruce's hand. It's good to meet you, Dr. Banner. Your work on anti-electron collisions is unparalleled, and I'm a huge fan of the way you lose control and turn into an enormous green rage monster. Bruce looks down. Thanks. Fury walks in. Dr. Banner is only here to track to Cube. I was hoping you might join him. Steve looks at Bruce and Tony. I would start with that stick of his. It may be magical, but it works an awful lot like a Hydra weapon. Fury looks at Steve. I don't know about that, but it is powered by the cube. And I would like to know how Loki used it to turn two of the sharpest men I know into his personal flying monkeys. Thor looks at Fury confused. Monkeys? I do not understand. Steve points to Thor. I do. I understood that reference. Tony rolls his eyes before looking at Bruce. Shall we play, Doctor? Bruce nods and walks with Tony. This way, sir. The Galaga player turns ever so discreetly, watches as everyone else disperses, and goes back to playing.